This meeting is being recorded.
Hey, thank you everyone for joining us. Today, I'm going to talk with Sara Byczek, who is the Director of Counseling and Psychological Services, commonly known as CAPS, on our campus. I wanted to talk with you, Sara, today because I just like to put faces with names and organizations on campus so that students can see that there's a real person and people behind all of these wonderful organizations that support our students. And I also think CAPS does such amazing and important work on behalf of the students and for the students. And I want to make sure that the students that I interact with and other students are aware of what your office provides. So to begin with, I'd like to learn just a little bit about you. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your role at the university?
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for having me. I love to be able to come out and kind of have conversations and talk about what's available. Because I think one of the biggest things that when I started here at UM-Dearborn, that was one of my goals, was to make sure students knew we existed. So I appreciate any opportunity I can to kind of be able to talk so that we can offer support to students who may not have known that we were available beforehand. So a little bit about me. So I'm the director, as you mentioned, at CAPS. I've been here for a little over 4 years now, but I am a UM-Dearborn alumni. So I did go here as an undergrad, we'll just say many moons ago. I won't go into specifics. And then I left to go get my master's from Illinois State and then my doctorate from Indiana State. My background as a psychologist has been in higher ed. So I say I never left school, right? So I went, my practicum experiences when I was going to school were at a college. My internship, culminating internship year was over at Grand Valley. I stayed there for a little bit before I transferred back home to the East Side. Ended up at Wayne State for several years before I saw this opportunity to be the director here and come back, to where it all started as an undergrad here at UM-Dearborn.
Wonderful. I didn't know you were an alum. That's great. I'm an alum too.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
I love that. I love that instant connection.
That's wonderful. We all come back, right? Because we love it so much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. What do you enjoy the most about your role? And then what are some of the challenges in your role?
Sure. So I think I wear two hats within the director CAPS role. Is one, I really enjoy the opportunity to make changes related to mental health on a campus-wide kind of level, and having the opportunities to be supported and figuring out the unique ways we can support our students. But then also, I as a director, I still see students as clients. So I keep a small caseload myself with students. And so as a psychologist there, I really value the opportunity or privilege that my role gets or has in being able to listen to and hold other people's stories, and be able to be that person that they can be able to come to and just talk about their lives. That in itself is a huge privilege. I think the biggest challenge really has been kind of what I alluded to at the very beginning of this, what my number one goal was coming in here, is really being able to reduce the stigma about seeking out services. So I think that there's this belief still that you have to have something wrong, with you to come to therapy. And the reality is, if you think about therapy as just coming to a person to have an objective, second party, be able to look at what's going on, we can all benefit from that, right? We can all benefit from having somebody who's an outsider, who doesn't have that friendship or family relationship, just be able to look at things and say, have you thought about it this way? And so I really try to push that out there, that therapy, we're not going to have you lay down on a couch, where we will talk about what you want. We will focus on getting your goals met. And it doesn't have to be really bad to be able to come into therapy and really benefit from it. On the same note, we are all licensed psychologists and social workers at CAPS, or one of our trainees who we supervise. And so if you are struggling with something big, we are what I'd like to call real therapists too. I've had several students come in and say, oh, I didn't realize you guys were actual clinicians, thinking that we were just but no, we actually are. And so we really are here to be able to support students, no matter if it's a little issue or a larger issue. And they get to define kind of what that is for them too. So my challenge is when to get that information out there, really. When I first got here, I got some great research from UM-Dearborn. One of the questions that they asked was, are you aware of mental health services offered on your campus? And only 40% of people who responded to a mental health survey said they were aware that we existed. So it has been my personal quest to up that and my personal challenge. We did the survey again last fall semester. We did get up to 65%. So we've made a good headway in 4 years, but we still have a far way to go. And so to get that message out that we exist and also that it's okay to come in, I think is our biggest challenge.
Thank you. I think that you've done an amazing job. I'm just from my perspective, both directing SOAR and also in my teaching, there seems to be much more awareness, but I want to help in any way that I can, of course, to help that awareness grow. And I really resonated with what you said about having that objective sort of third person be there. And I always do stress that with students, and I know it's been true in my own life, that you're right. It doesn't have to be something necessarily huge or difficult that you're coming to get the support from. Sometimes it's those day-to-day life stressors or lack of support or any number of things that a lot of people, and it comes, sometimes I think it's the aggregate of a lot of things. And to have someone who's not a friend or a family member, or they just bring a different perspective and a different way of looking at things. So I appreciate that you said that. That's really helpful, I think, to the students. And also that you are a real therapist, which of course I knew that, and I want all the students to know that there's just this wonderful dynamic group that's in your office that's capable and willing to help. And speaking of the office, can you give us an overview of the clinical services or the types of services that are offered in CAPS?
Sure. So all our services are free. I like to point that out because it's very rare in life that you're going to have access to free mental health services. So it's another good reason to take advantage of the opportunity while you do. So we offer individual therapy. We do not have a session limit. We kind of base the number of sessions that you need based off of what your needs and goals are. You know, so if you're like, okay, I have this concern and I'm really hoping to, you know, put all my energy and efforts into doing that. Well, maybe we can get you that goal met within, 6 to 8 sessions. Maybe this is something that's more longstanding, and so you need a longer time working with a therapist. That's fine. We really wanted to be able to provide services that recognize that we're not a one-size-fits-all campus, and so we shouldn't have a one-size-fits-all model either. So again, free individual counseling. We also offer couples counseling or relationship counseling as long as one of the partners is a registered UM-Dearborn student. The other one does not have to be. And we also offer group services. So we have different groups every semester, really trying to focus on the different needs of students as well. We do our clinical work both virtually, such as on Zoom, which you can do from your own home, or maybe you want to remain virtual, but you don't have a space at home. We also do have Zoom rooms on our outside of our area at CAPS, so you can come onto campus and use one of our Zoom rooms to be able to still meet virtually, so you don't have to wear a mask. But we also do offer in-person services right now as well. Just again, you're aligning with whatever the mask policy is at the university. So right now we are indeed doing those in-person services with masks on. We also have like different programs, like we have the Mental Health and Wellness Peer Educator Program, which are usually undergraduate or graduate students here at UM-Dearborn that we hire to serve as peer mentors, basically, for students who may be curious about therapy or what CAPS has to offer, but not yet ready to walk through our doors. So you can come and talk to one of our peer educators. They usually have tables down in the UC across from Picasso on Tuesdays and Wednesdays from I think 11 to 2. But they're just hanging out there. They have different mindful art activities people can take or do while they're there. But it's also just an opportunity to talk to a peer who we have actually accomplished some training and education with, so has more knowledge than the average student about mental health concerns.
Wow, that's really comprehensive. I'm so excited to hear about all of that. And also for me, because there are some things that I thought, for example, that there was a limit on sessions. Perhaps there was years ago.
There was
Okay.
Previously, but we really, I feel really lucky and privileged is that the university as a whole was really invested in doing a full examination of how we can best really support students' mental health. And so several years, or well, probably about 3 years ago now, we actually had an outside person come in and help us do like an actual whole overview of campus services related to mental health and how we could best support students. And so they also agreed with my assessment that we really need to get rid of that session limit, that we needed to look at solution focused. We're always working towards a goal, but that our campus is just too diverse to be able to say 6 sessions or 8 sessions or whatever works for all students. It just doesn't work that way. And so we were able to get that support, hire in some additional people to be able to help meet that goal. And it's been in place now for about 2 years.
I think that's great, and that speaks really highly of the campus. I also liked what you had to say about the couples therapy. I did not know that that was available. And I also really loved what you said about the Zoom room, because you're right, not everybody can meet safely or comfortably at home, but yet also might not be comfortable in a closed-in space at this point in time, you know, mask to mask. And it's just so to have a room that you can go into and be on campus and still meeting virtually and have the mask off, I think that's excellent information. So thank you for sharing that. You talked a little bit about group therapies that are offered. Can you give me some examples of like what the various group therapies have been or how those sessions work out?
Sure. So I'm going to talk about this semester. I think it's a pretty good example of the different types of groups we usually have. So the majority of our groups are what we call interpersonal groups. And what that really is more, it's a general therapy group. So you don't have to have a specific concern to join the group. It's there to have different people be able to come together to be able to talk and share their experiences, a safe place for people maybe to try out different skills that they're working on or make connections. And so we usually offer those maybe 3 or 4 a semester. People can join at any time. You don't have to join at the very beginning of the semester. We do allow people to join as they come into contact and we feel it's appropriate. We do have a limited number of people in groups. So it's not that you're going in and talking to 20 people. Our groups usually don't get bigger than 8 to 10, and then we close them because we want people that are in the groups having the opportunity to be able to talk if they want to talk and process things that they want to process. So those are more open general groups. Then we do have some more topic specific or population specific groups usually every semester. So we have lately been running what's called a coping skills group. So it's more, we're teaching a specific skill each group session. So a little less just talking about your presenting concerns, a little bit more learning some very specific coping skills and coping strategies. So for individuals who are saying, you know, I feel like if I just had the tools or some different tools in my toolbox to be able to manage what I'm going through, I could do that. This would be a great group for you. It's a great way to be able to kind of get some of those behavioral or cognitive different ways of being able to manage stress and everyday interpersonal relationships. And then the more population specific group we have this semester is we have the UM-Dearborn support group. It focuses on Black students on campus. It is open to all students, of course, but the topics focus mostly about how to be able to support Black students on campus. And it is a support group, not a therapy group. The biggest difference with that is you do not have to sign up at CAPS in any way, shape, or form to attend a support group. You can just show up for it. And you don't have any record. It's just an opportunity to come. So maybe if you're, again, wanting to get a little bit of a better idea as a student of color on campus about what therapy processes might be like, a support group could be a great way to be able to kind of dip your toes in the water and kind of feel if this is right for you. And again, as different students come to us and talk about different topics they're interested in or different populations that are wanting support groups to really be able to dive into maybe their specific needs, we're always open. So we're always trying to change and adapt to kind of what the students' experiences are to be able to offer those different type of group services.
So with these support groups, are they facilitated by someone?
They are, yes. So every one of the groups are facilitated by 2 CAPS clinicians. We do 2 on purpose. Let's say someone's having a really hard day in group. We're going to be able to we're going to want to pull them aside and be able to talk with them one-on-one, and we don't want to leave the group by themselves. So we always have 2 clinicians there to facilitate both any of the therapy groups or support groups.
That makes sense. I think those are really interesting, especially so my background in my other hat on campus is teaching in the communication department. Typically, I teach interpersonal communication. So you're talking my language, and I'm really glad that we have these opportunities for students. And I think it is a gentle way for students to be introduced to some of the ways that they can learn different things and understand themselves a little bit better. And also, I like the focus, it sounds, of the support groups might be a little bit sort of cognitive skill based and learning how to change a behavior or at least understand, you know, where you might be getting stuck. So I think that's excellent, and I'm glad that those are offered. And all of that information can be found on the website too, I assume, for the CAPS website.
Absolutely. One of the things that we really did immediately after we went all virtual in March of 2020 is really started recognizing that our website was kind of more like our front office now. And so we wanted to make sure it was always up to date. So we have really expanded the knowledge on our website. And we check in every 2 weeks now to make sure that everything, all the links are still working, all the information is still accurate. So yeah, any up-to-date information, always check our website.
Boy, that's a good plan that you go in and check the links and things like that. Yeah, because something happens, that maybe something isn't clickable anymore, and you need to know those things. So that's a great idea. Can you talk a little bit? We hear a lot about mindfulness, and we hear a lot about mindfulness on college campuses, and it has so many different sort of terms and ways of being understood. And I know a lot of us cultivate what we would consider a mindfulness practice, but then there's also ways of applying mindfulness to just sort of everyday living. And so, what's your sort of interpretation of a mindfulness practice and how that can benefit or help a student? And are there resources or links where students can explore how this might benefit them? And I know that this has, been kind of a growing movement even prior to the pandemic, sort of becoming much more popular during the pandemic. And maybe now we're using different language outside of the word mindfulness, but it is, I think, really beneficial, this idea of present moment living and taking time to sort of breathe and get to know yourself on a different level. So I'll let you explain a little bit about how you view that as being helpful or not for a student, and what resources we might have available for them.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you brought up mindfulness, because we think of mindfulness very broadly, and I think the easiest way to kind of summarize like our approach or understanding of mindfulness is how to be in the moment. So it's very often that we are even having a conversation like this, and we're not listening to hear the person, we're listening to figure out how we're going to respond, right? So we're already thinking about the future. Or you might be thinking about, well, they asked this question, they'll probably ask this question. So I'm thinking about what they already have asked. And so I'm in the past and a little bit in the future. And all of those different spaces, future, past, it's distracting us from what's around us, which is what we actually have the most control over, is in the moment. It stops us from really being able to stop and process and hear what people are saying and hear what we are saying to ourselves and the environments around us. So I really go back to mindfulness. To me is really about just being present in the moment. And we can incorporate that in all ways of life. So I use the example of a conversation. So when you find yourself listening to respond, it's saying, oh, no, let's go back to the moment. I'm listening to what the person's saying, not about what my response is going to be. Or I'm listening to a conversation, I start thinking about what's for dinner. Oh, no, I'm not going to blame myself. I'm not going to shame myself. I'm just going to bring myself back to this moment. That's really mindfulness practices. When we take a shower every morning or every evening, how often are we aware of what we're doing? Are we just on autopilot because we're thinking about what we have to do that day or what we have to do the next day, where our head's all over the place? We never really stop and say, oh, what's this water feel like? Oh, the different smells of soap. What does this feel like when I use this washcloth? How does it feel or sound when the water is rolling over me? So just stopping and being more aware of our senses in the moment can really be brought into any type of practice that we're doing. We talk about mindful eating, and it isn't watching what you eat. It's actually enjoying the process of eating. Looking at the food shape, looking at the textures, feeling it. How does it feel on your tongue? Feeling the different tastes. It's slowing things down and really being there in the moment. And the benefits are extraordinary. So I often hear, college students and just adults in general say, I don't have time to meditate or do deep breathing or go to yoga. Okay, but you already are eating. You already are bathing. You already are having conversations. So you can practice mindfulness in any of those situations. And so it can be something you do all the time, and the benefits are incredible. I mean, the research has shown all kinds of different benefits for a person, mental health wise, physical health wise, and wellness, academic success. I mean, really the list goes on and on every day that they're finding for it. We also, during kind of the beginning parts of COVID, put together with help from actually UM and Arbor, who had received some grant funding, to put together a packet for faculty actually on how to bring mindful practices to the classroom. So yes, it could be starting every class with everybody take a deep breath, focus on the moment. Sure, we would definitely encourage that. But it could just be, how are we having our conversations as faculty? How are we engaging in the classroom that keeps people in the present moment and not one step in the past or one step in the future? So again, I think it's a great way to be able to kind of adjust the way we're living. I was recently talking about mindful walking. I had shared with you before we started this that I recently got a foster dog. And so oftentimes I am taking her for walks. And it's really easy, I find myself, to be in the future of, oh, what's around the corner? Is she going to bark? She doesn't have much training yet. And I realized the other day I had to just stop and say, no, let's go back to the surroundings. Let's look at the snow. Let's look at the ice. Let's look at what the buildings look like. Let's smell the different smells. And I could literally just feel myself relaxing because I was no longer worrying about the what ifs or what was. I was just enjoying my surroundings. So I think we could all benefit from the ability to catch ourselves when we're in that foot in the future or foot in the past and just bring ourselves back to the moment.
I think that's great. And I think that you're right. As you know, I work with mostly adult students and through the SOAR program, and busy adults, but I think all of our students are busy. So it's maybe a little bit of a misnomer there, but I think that it's easy to say I don't have time, and that's really our worst enemy, is that sort of mindset. And even small things. I know that one practice I got in the habit of, I tried a lot of mindfulness things throughout the course of the pandemic, as I'm sure many people did. And a couple of them really stuck with me. One of them is the mindful walking, like you mentioned. If I find myself getting too far ahead of myself in the past or the future, I do start to just focus on my surroundings. And so I really enjoy that. That helps a lot. And the other thing is, as long as I have some version of a breathing practice, and that's been many different things. It's been very intentional and sort of longer periods of time and more sort of really more meditative. It's been Qigong, it's been different practices like that. But sometimes it's just 10 or 12 deep breaths.
Yeah.
When I'm stressed. And if I just sit and I take in 10 or 12 deep breaths, which takes all of about 2 minutes, 2 or 3
Right.
minutes, wow, it has a wonderful effect on how you're feeling. And so these are the kinds of resources that I want to make sure that students are aware of and know that they're out there. Are there web resources on your website for those kinds of things that are available for students too?
Yes, great question. So we do, one of the, again, as I said, we kind of rethought of our website as that front desk area when we were all the way virtual. So we actually have a whole tab that just says like helpful resources. And we have really developed that into like different categories, different links, different videos that include some different example of like relaxation exercises, mindful breathing, mindful practices. One of my favorite worksheets, I guess you could say, that are on there is, if you have 1 minute, here's what you can do to be more mindful. If you have 2 minutes, if you have 5 minutes, if you have 10, because, okay, maybe I can't find a half hour, but I can find 1 or 2 minutes, as you mentioned. So there's lots of those on our website there. We also have access, and I've been trying to get this information out there too. Every student, faculty, and staff has access to a free Silver Cloud account. And this is something that you can do online or on your smartphone. And it's already paid for. So I'm like, hey, utilize these resources. And what it does is it does like a quick assessment of kind of where are you at wellness wise. So, how are you sleeping? How are you eating? How are you feeling? How much, self-care are you engaging in? And then it gives you some recommendations of different modules you could go through to be able to help you feel even better. So again, maybe you're like, okay, I don't feel like I need to go to therapy, but I could really benefit from mental health and wellness checkup. We go to physical checkups. Why wouldn't we go to a mental health and wellness checkup? This is a great way to be able to do that on your own time, whenever you want to, that's convenient for you, and get some research-backed recommendations of some different things you can do to be able to set up a schedule to help you. And some of those modules really go over mindfulness too. So definitely download it, check it out, give yourself an account. It can be a really helpful resource.
Well, that sounds great. I'm going to look into that for myself. I think that sounds really interesting. I'm definitely going to check out some of the resources also that you have on the CAPS website. I know I've shared some of those with students in the past, but I haven't yet looked at anything this semester, so I want to take a look at that. How can a student reach out to you if they're interested in making an appointment? Are you, I assume you're doing virtual and, well, we talked about that a little bit, doing virtual and face-to-face.
So we're trying to be as accessible as possible. Okay, so if a student feels most comfortable emailing us, to set up appointments, then email us. What we will do from there is we'll send you an individualized link that will kind of connect to our kind of paperwork assessment piece that we have all students fill out that help us match you with a therapist. We'll send you that link and a password, because again, all our services are confidential, not connected to your student record in any way. As soon as you complete that, you have to complete it during business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, because we want to make sure that we are immediately reviewing that information. We don't want that just sitting there in a queue somewhere. So it actually will not work after 5 o'clock if you try to complete it. But again, if you complete that assessment, as soon as we get that, we'll review that and then give you a call or email to set up that first appointment. Now, all our first intake appointments are done virtual right now. That way you can just be able to have that conversation with your therapist about whether or not you want to come in person, whether it be appropriate. Do you need Zoom rooms? Now, again, if you're like, well, I want to do that first session, but I don't have a confidential space, just let us know in that email or conversation. We'll reserve one of our rooms then for you. So you can call. We will most likely, if you call, ask you for an email, because we're going to send you that link again, because we really want that assessment paperwork to help us build a match. Or if you're on campus, you can stop in anytime, between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday, because we always have somebody there on campus as well. And we have computers in the back that you can fill out that assessment on campus if that works better for you. So we tried all different ways to be able to make sure that people could be able to make those appointments with whatever comfort level or involvement on campus they're having right now.
Okay, just one more question, Sarah. Well, I actually have two short questions. One is, what if a student is really in crisis, like it's a crisis situation, or if the student has self-identified that they're in a crisis situation, or if a friend or colleague or faculty member is seeing a student who's really in a crisis, what should they do?
Sure, that's a great question. And there's a couple different choices that you kind of have depending on the situation. So, if it's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you're on campus, come on over to CAPS. We always have a clinician there, and you can say, hey, let's walk over. I really want to support you, but this isn't my, expertise area, but I know on campus there is the clinicians there that can be able to see you. Walk that student, walk your friend, walk yourself right over to CAPS and say, I need to talk to somebody right now. And we will get a clinician to be able to talk with you right then and there. Let's say you're working with your friend that tells you that they are struggling. There's not an immediate risk, but you really want to get them connected. Definitely tell them about our resources, but also you always have the option to do care reports. I don't think enough students and faculty and staff know about care reports. And care reports are not to get anyone in trouble. They're literally there because we as a university care. And we want to be able to make sure that we are contacting and assisting students that we know are struggling. And so the care report comes to a team of individuals, which I happen to be a member of as representative of counseling and psychological services. And we triage the student's concern and figure out who would be best to reach out. And then that's kind of your person who is going to help you get all the different resources on campus that might be able to help you with your specific crisis. Maybe the crisis isn't mental health related. Maybe it is. We want to be able to make sure, though, that everybody's on the same page. And since CAPS is confidential, we cannot disclose whether or not you're in therapy or coming to therapy. So care reports can be a great way for the university to make sure all the resources are being addressed that way. Let's say you're at home and it's 6 o'clock on a Saturday. Well, we're not open, right? We have a crisis line that is specifically for U of M-Dearborn students. So it is our phone number. It is on our specific U of M-Dearborn phone number. It is on our website. When they pick up the phone, they say U of M-Dearborn Counseling and Psychological Services, because they're literally licensed clinicians that are answering our after hours number. They will work with whomever calls and help them through the situation that they're in. If they feel that they need to call in a CAPS clinician to have someone boots on the ground, they will. They'll contact me. But if not, they will really work with you if you're the person that's struggling, or your friend, or just wanting advice on how to help your friend. And then they send a report to me as the director the next day, and I just follow up the next business day and make sure everything's okay. Because we do recognize that, yeah, we're there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, but life happens after 5 or on the weekend, and we need that support. And so it was right before COVID actually hit, we got this crisis line in place for U of M-Dearborn students, because we felt that it was important to have one that we could follow up with and that we knew were being answered by trained professionals. Not all crisis lines are equal. So we felt it was really important to be able to get this service. And I don't think a lot of students or even faculty are aware that it exists. So that is also an option if you want to be able to phone in to talk to somebody.
Okay, gosh. Well, this has all been great information. I completely appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today and help me in getting the word out to students about all that CAPS provides. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure that we include?
I think we covered about all like the main highlights I can think about at this moment. I think the biggest part I just always try to do as a takeaway message is that if you have a question, don't be afraid to call or email us. You know, I think there's this fear that your like parents or significant other or teachers or deans are somehow going to know, but we are confidential. We are not going to share that information with anybody unless you want us to share information. And we really are here to help and support. And so really, if you have a question, don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, sounds great. And I want to reiterate too to the students, as you've mentioned, you can just see this as an opportunity to sort of explore, and you're not committing yourself to anything in particular. It's an opportunity to explore some choices or options that you might have to get yourself into a little bit of a better place if that's your desire. And also that students come in all ages, and so it's not just a particular age group or demographic of students or faculty or staff who might benefit. Of course, we're focusing on students here, but that it's a great opportunity for students of all ages to get support for the bigger issues in life and also the littler issues in life that can really have an impact on how we're doing overall. So thanks for taking the time. I'll go ahead and close out the recorded portion of the video. And then if you just stay on for a minute, I just want to make sure that I can thank you and chit chat for a minute. So we'll go ahead and end this now. And again, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it a whole lot.
Thanks for having me.